And one particular coach stopped me and, walked up next to me and asked me what's wrong. I said, I made a bad choice. I should have gone the other way. A lot of people around me told me not to do it. To be honest, they said, you have a path in mind. You've been sticking to it so far and it's worked out pretty well. Why would you want to do this?
And I don't know if you saw it, Alex, but like you jumped in and you saved my ass.
You want to make sure that everything, when we get to the end and they flip that switch, that this whole system works, right? If this doesn't work, the company shuts down, can't make money, and there's jobs on the line here. That's a very high pressure time of the season for hockey teams. Every kid wants to make the highest level they can. And nobody likes to be cut. Nobody wants to be moved to a lower group.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Making Your Mark podcast. I'm your host, Mark Bundang, and today I have a very special guest, as usual. His name is Alex Salvaggio. Hi, Alex.
How's it going, Mark?
I'm all right. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Happy to be
here. You ready for a great interview?
I think so, yeah. Let's go.
Go. And he's a coach, right? So one of the many talents that Alex has is he's a coach. So he's good at cheering on people. But today I'm going to cheer him on this as he's the guest on this podcast. Just a few words on how I know Mr. Salvaggio. Alex and I met in a company that we used to work for called Weir, and he was in the finance department. I was in a fledgling project management department, and eventually our paths really crossed when we worked on an ERP implementation together. And that's when we really got to saw each other in the trenches, and where I really got to see like the kind of great professional and human being that Alex is. So I'm making him blush now.
Very much. Thank you.
Hey, there's more to come, by the way. You know what, Alex, I can tell more people about you or more about you, but really, you know what, I think it would be best if you told a little bit about your background and where you feel you made your mark.
Thanks, Mark. This is more than I deserve as an intro there. Thank you. No, look, a little bit about me. Proud father of two. I can't leave my kids out of this, and been married over 15 years. So very happy about my family, where that is. Business-wise, yes, we met each other at Weir. We've each parted ways since then, but kept in touch, which has been great. And both of our careers have gone from there. I'm a CPA by trade. I'm an accountant, and currently at an apparel company working away right now. So that's I guess very quick recap of where I'm at now and where I've made my mark. Well, I like to think I'm a people person. I can work well with my teams and kind of coach them. You mentioned coaching. We'll get into that a little later. I am a coach in my spare time. I enjoy that aspect of my life. It's fulfilling. And yeah, I think being able to give back to others and help them along and help younger people grow is really important. So that's it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Alex. I know you're also being a bit more humble than a lot of people would be. You've accomplished a lot, but I do want to go back a little bit. So I know where you are now. I know that coaching is a part of your life as well. So is being a family man, and you can tell right away when you ask these kind of questions to a guest if where their values lie. So I know that while you take a lot of pride professionally and you've accomplished a lot, I know also from personal experience talking with you that family and giving back to the community and service to others is important to you very much so. So I want to go back a little bit. We're not the same people we were 20, 25 years ago, right? So you had to start somewhere. Is there a particular experience that you want to share with the audience in terms of what formed Alex today?
Yeah, absolutely. We've brought up coaching a little bit, and I think that all started in my teenage years. I was on a high level rugby team at that time. We were at a training camp, and we really had a tough practice in the morning. In the afternoon, we were in the Eastern Townships, and we were going on a team hike up one of the mountains in the Eastern Townships. And the coaches at the time gave us two options: could decide to take an easier route and a more direct, harder route underneath the chairlifts there, right up the steeper part of the mountain. I decided, being young and ambitious and thinking I was really fit, to take the harder route. About half hour in, I instantly regretted that decision. I was really struggling. I really thought I made a bad choice there. I was tired, and one particular coach who I still keep in contact with all these years later stopped me and walked up next to me and asked me what's wrong. I said I made a bad choice. I should have gone the other way. And he said, no. He's like, you're thinking of getting to the top because you want this to finish. He's like, it's too big right now for you. We weren't even halfway up the mountain at this point, to be honest. And he's like, just look at the next chairlift pole. I don't know how far they are, every 100 feet, 200 feet apart. He's like, and just focus on getting to the next one and the next one. And, I think I was 17 at the time, 17, 18, being at that age, thinking you know everything, it kind of hit me that, okay, let's try to break this down. In retrospect, it's really eating the elephant one bite at a time. When I look back on it now, that's really what he was explaining to me to do. And it worked. It really did. I got to the top, made it, I was alive. See, that moment stuck with me forever. And I still see this coach around the rugby environment, the rugby world, and I still talk to him. I still tell him about that moment. He came along and coached me later on in my career as well, and that really it changed my mindset a little bit at the age on how to tackle things, and benefited me throughout university and throughout my career, going through school, working on big projects. That was really an important moment for me.
Hmm. That's interesting because there's two things that I pull from there. One is you got a very influential moment on someone coaching you, which kind of maybe influenced you to get into it as well. And the other thing was at such a young age, and by the way, that happens in your 20s and in your 30s when you get it's that what I found was that when you're younger, you tend to overestimate. You want to jump over the roof, and then you find out that you can't really jump that high. So I wanted to ask you, like, what was the feeling when you said, like, oh, you know what? Oh man, I'm not gonna make it. Like, how did you feel inside?
To be honest, a bit embarrassed. Because I'd say 3/4 of the team took the easy route, and a couple of guys said you should join us, and I was like, no, I can do this. So I was a little bit embarrassed, thinking that I wasn't going to make it to the top. I'll be honest. That's probably
Okay, so how do you get to a point where you accept, like, oh, I might not make it, and then how do you, because a lot of guys at that age, they tend to be, like ego-ish.
yeah. I definitely wasn't going to be the only one turning around and going back to the bottom. That was that wasn't an option. So I kind of had to dig in, and that coach really knew what to say to make sure that I'm going to get to the top. He really broke. I guess I don't know how he did it, but he was able to figure out what I needed at that time to make sure I can get there. But turning around was definitely no way an option. You're right. You're on a rugby team, a lot of big tough guys, and I didn't want to be the one guy not making it to the top there. Even if it took me twice as long as everyone else, I was going to get to the top.
Is that actually? I'm curious. Is that in team sports now for people that age? Is that still a thing where, like, I'm not going to be the only one?
Um, I find less so. It's definitely changed. We're talking 25 years plus different. The culture's changed, but there's still a bit of machoism, I guess, around certain team sports. You got to be tough. You got to be willing to sacrifice a little bit. But the way coaching has definitely changed. That was a moment back then that he really realized what I needed. But it was still tough love coaching back in back in the day. It's coaching style has definitely changed for the better, I think. So yeah, it's been different.
I do want to get to that because it's like you hear a lot about like, and I used to play hockey back in the day when I was a teenager, maybe too long ago, but back in my day, like the locker room culture was very much, it was very macho. It was very like to motivate you. It almost had to be like you don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want to be. Um, an old term was you don't want to be a sissy, you know. Now, I guess the mentality is a bit more like what your coach showed you
Absolutely.
a little bit, right? So was that rare for you at that time too, or?
I did, it is rare, and it just proves that even back then that was the right approach to take. At least for me, it was. Look, getting a kick in the butt every once in a while to run a little faster works too. But at that time, it was probably a little out of the ordinary, but much appreciated on my part. It really it helped change my thinking and my approach to being more persistent or to persevere a little bit more. He made me realize that I could do it as long as I just was able to do it in smaller pieces and not get overwhelmed by the size of what I'm trying to accomplish at that time, which was climb a mountain. I know uh, it sounds big. It's just a little mountain here in the Eastern Townships, so it wasn't as big as it should be. But to me, this was huge. So yeah.
And did the other kids on your team, did they know what happened?
That's an excellent question. Nobody said a word, to be honest, ever. All that mattered is we all got to the top, and all had a good time. No one ever said anything. I'm sure people around me, though, there were a few other guys that took the harder route, a bit better shape than me, so they were further ahead, but they can tell that I was behind. But nobody ever commented or said anything. So I'm sure they knew, but nothing that a 17 or 18-year-old had to deal with after. No, the team was really good. Our team was pretty tight at that point. We were later into the season, and yeah, no, it was a lot of support, and no 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 words were said, I guess.
Oh, okay. So you didn't talk about the experience either after.
No, honestly, no, I did not.
Okay. And how about when I th- I guess where I'm trying to get at as well is I know it kind of changed the way you thought, like and it's a good thing that you learned early on, like how to do this, Uh, but I imagine I think you went through your university degree and then you started to work, right? So did you find the parallels in your work life a bit sooner rather than later with that experience in mind?
No, absolutely. That I think I'll call it a pivotal moment, knowing that I can do more than my body or my mind thinks it can. You place limitations on yourself occasionally, and you need someone from the outside to tell you that maybe think of it a different way, you'll get through it, or we know you can do it. And that getting through university and going into business, working on larger projects or looking at other aspects of business that seem monumental, breaking it down and uh, having the belief in yourself to keep going, and also to be able to think that okay, let's just break this down into smaller pieces, and we can get through this project and keep it on time and do what needs to be done. And it all for me, that was the first time I ever had to think about or got to think about that approach, and it's definitely helped throughout my life up to this point.
Mm, good. Um, that provincial, it was a provincial rugby team you mentioned.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, is was that so that was that with the high school that you were at, or?
No, there was guys from all over the province that came in to play on that team. It was through summer, basically, culminating in the going to the Canada Games and representing the province. So it was, I guess, a high caliber group of guys, or for the group that showed up, it was the highest level of rugby for a lot of us at that point. Knowing that we're going to be going up against some provinces that are much stronger rugby provinces. So we were trying to prepare the best we could. The coaches were trying to prepare us the best we could to go up against competition that we knew was going to be stronger when we got there. So it was. These were all guys that were hungry to play. They wanted to play. They wanted to see what they can do. Unfortunately, we didn't do that well when we got to the Canada Games, but the experience of preparing and attending and participating in that event was a really great experience for me in my life up to this point. Yeah.
I think like for me, one of the things that I had experienced when I was 17 was I didn't have a lot of for me I was very academic, right? Like so my skills were more academic, and I was although I played team sports and stuff like that, I was not a good athlete at all. So I always feared being like the weak link in the chain, and it was only until my adult life when I realized that most people aren't thinking about you more than you think, like than you think they are.
Mhm.
Most of them are more thinking about how other people think about themselves. So I wish that I had been. I wish that I had a coach that told me that when I was younger as well. Um, Recognizing that like just work on you, and then try to do the small steps, and those are victories on their own. Yes, the result matters, but when you're 17, you're not, and you're not like at training for the Olympics. It's not about getting the gold medal. It's about who developing who the person is.
Yeah. So to your point, I played rugby throughout high school into CEGEP, university, and I played a little bit of club rugby after that here in the West Island. And I was never the superstar of the team. I always had to. The effort I put in is what got me to where I needed to be to play on certain teams. I was always that middle of the pack guy, just trying to work hard to stay relevant on that team, and that's something I focus on now with the teams that I coach. I emphasize effort and focus. We can talk about the coaching a little later and how I approach it, but I just want all the kids to give everything they can. Some kids are elite, and it just comes naturally to them, and other kids struggle. But those kids that are struggling, I have no issue with that as long as they're giving me everything that they could possibly give, and that's how that's what I did while I was playing sports. So that's what I expect now from the kids that's what I'm hoping for from the kids I'm coaching now.
So you've taken that experience. You went through university. You picked the profession of finance and accounting, and then you got into the business world, and then you landed at Weir, right? And I think you landed at Weir just, I don't know if it was within the year before I got in, but I got in April 2017.
Yeah, so I think we were pretty close. I think 6 to 9 months apart from I coming in and then you joining. We are shortly after. So yeah, that was it was a big step in my career to move there from where I had come from. Had a prior to being there, I was with another organization for just over 7 years. I I decided it was time for a change, and I came over to Weir as a finance manager for one of the divisions, one of the Canadian divisions, and yeah, it was still within, I guess, the same domain, same industry ish, all around the mining industry, but it was I guess a bigger role, a bit more responsibility. Um, And then an opportunity came along within Weir, which was a project where you and I, that you mentioned earlier, got to work much more closely on. It was an ERP implementation. When I was originally asked to join that project, I wasn't sure. I started consulting family and friends, knowing very well that this was going to be a big project. This is going to be potentially a multi-year project. I would be taken out of the current role I'm in and moved on to this project until its completion. And I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted. I had I guess, a career path in mind, really staying within that finance track, finance accounting track. This would have taken me out of that track a little bit, more into still within the finance domain, but more in that IT implementation project space. And that's not what I had really thought of. A lot of people around me told me not to do it. To be honest, they said, you have a path in mind. You should probably stick to it. You've been sticking to it so far, and it's worked out pretty well. Why would you want to do this? Just stay within your lane, and those are the type of, not as direct, but the type of comments I was getting. Spoke with my wife. She says, do whatever feels right to you. That's what it was. Anyways, obviously, at the end of the story, I decided to jump on this project that we both thought. I said, you know what, this is gonna open up, be able to see more of the business rather than just finance. It was a multidisciplinary project. We had finance, we had engineering, we had, every department was involved here, and we were all going to be working very closely together. So it was going to give me a pretty big exposure to other aspects of the business. Yes, I was stepping away from finance, but I got to see and experience a lot more. So that was kind of my decision on how, even with everyone pushing against me, I decided to, kind of bet on myself a little bit and jump in head first, really.
I want to touch on that notion about who you were going into it, because and we can go into a little bit after in terms of like what was like during and then kind of what happened after, But going into it, I think you alluded to it a little bit. It doesn't fit the conventional, I guess, finance track that most people think. And I challenge the notion that a career has a linear progression. It's we're taught that, especially my generation, up until my generation, because I'm a Gen Xer. Like my generation was taught that, because the boomers also, like, you do this, then you do that, and it's always the same ladder, and it's straight up, and these are the rungs. Uh, was that the case for you?
Yeah, I very much had that mentality, the ladder, climbing up that ladder. And up until that project, that's what I was doing. I was, starting as an analyst and senior analyst and, finance manager, and just kind of making my way up the ladder, like you said. I hadn't really even thought of anything else until this opportunity arose. So that's why I didn't jump on it right away. It took me a few weeks before I answered. And I was grateful that they gave me that time to think about it. So it really was a direct path in my head. Having made that, we'll call it a detour, has actually helped me in the long run. It's what I was thinking, getting that exposure and learning about other aspects of the business, other departments, has really added skill sets to what I had in my toolbox, I guess, extra tools that's helped me now to this day. Like, look, where I'm at now, we're actually looking at a new ERP system, and what I've learned on that project has actually, I'm the executive sponsor of the project now because I have the experience behind me, to be able to help, and everything I've learned from that time on that ERP implementation has been critical in where we're doing now and where we're got, and me advocating for bringing in a new ERP, knowing what it can do, but also explaining some of the risks that can happen having gone through it. So it was a good decision in the end. I wasn't sure at that time, but sometimes you have to trust your gut and just go with it and persevere. It wasn't always easy. There was a lot of travel involved in that project. I'm sure you remember, Mark. I had a young family at the time. It wasn't easy at home. My wife with the 2 young kids at home, and myself being on the road quite a bit. But in the long run, it's been beneficial to me and my family. It's opened up roles and responsibilities that I probably wouldn't have gotten a chance to look at if I hadn't gotten that experience. So betting on myself has worked out, especially on that one.
And I guess for the benefit of the audience, so I'll explain a little bit about the ERP. I always like, for people who don't know what an ERP is, or enterprise resource planning platform or software, that it's kind of like the central nervous system of the company. So a lot of information comes in, processed in the central, I guess, module, and then the brain, and then it comes out, in terms of action. So when you get an order from a customer, that gets put into the system, and then it gets translated into a production order, and then that means consuming raw materials, which are accounted for as well, and then eventually you produce a finished product, and then that gets delivered, and then when it does, then the customer pays you. That money goes in somewhere, it goes to the bank, and then it's also registered in the ERP system, and then that's a sale, right? Or something like that. Man, I hope I got that right.
That's a great explanation, Mark.
Okay, well, I guess I learned something on that ERP implementation.
For any of your viewers that are in that accounting finance area and have never experienced this, in any of these systems, all roads lead to finance, which I didn't even realize before I jumped on this project. So that really made the finance team and a pivotal part of the project, really working with every department from procurement to logistics to engineering. So that ended up being a great opportunity to learn from different people, different ways of looking at things, but also being able to provide them some guidance on how finance needs the information at the end for all the reporting. Everything at the beginning of the process needs to lead up to how we want to see the information at the end. So being able to support all those other teams really was an aspect that I didn't even consider and didn't even realize until we were into that project.
I guess now that we've kind of reached the levels that we have in our own careers, our companies now, Alex, at least for me, I mean, for you kind of already knew, going into having been a finance person, that the P&L, right? The P&L statement, the profit and loss, and then what those numbers mean, right? What is heavy when you're a leader or when you're at the executive table is the decisions you have to make based on those numbers, right? So sometimes you have, like, especially in large or small in businesses, sometimes making your numbers or sometimes not making your numbers means some people will make it this year and some people, unfortunately, that happens, right? So what I want to ask you is, how did going through the implementation that you went through at Weir, how does that help you now?
It's a good question. There was aspects of business that I didn't realize what some of the inputs were. I was always at the end. Finance is at the end. It's a lot of it's in the reporting part. It's retrospective, so numbers have already come through whatever system you're using. And then there's also a part that can be prospective when you're looking at budgeting and forecasting. Working on that project, having to look at all the different inputs that make those numbers, opened my eyes to knowing that sometimes it's not as easy to get the results that finance is often pushing for, or management's always is pushing for. Realizing that the raw material prices can change quite suddenly is one of them, or inventory swings can happen because customers decide to not purchase something or send something back. Um, it's not as it's not as linear as people think. There's a lot of things that can happen between getting an order and the final reporting at the end. Um, and that project really showed me that.
Hmm. You know what? I can't stress enough how important or how well rounded it makes you coming out of an ERP implementation, especially with the level of involvement that you had. Uh, but you know what? It's a finite period of time, right? You're in there for maybe a year, maybe two, if depending on how well it goes and how the scope of the project. What's it like during? Because it can feel like, even if it's like this, it feels like, oh my God, I'm never going to see the end of this.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that a little bit. During at the beginning, it's really exciting. Everyone's keyed up, ready to go. They want to put their best. When you get into the meat and potatoes, it's grueling. This is a lot of these ERP projects are transformational for whatever business you're working with. A lot of processes are going to change or can change. Um, and you don't want to fail. It's pressure. It is. You want to make sure that everything, when we get to the end and they flip that switch, that this whole system works, right? There's a lot of people in an organization that are relying on this system to function when you're done. Because, there's, it might be a little drastic, but there's livelihoods on the end. If this doesn't work, the company shuts down, can't make money, and there's jobs on the line here. So the pressure to make sure that this works well and the go live goes well, it gets ramped up as the project goes. We had some, Mark, you led a lot of meetings with us, those morning meetings when we were all together. And, most of the time they were civil, but sometimes there was some tougher discussions about deliverables from one team to another, or or people that were, certain teams that were lagging behind a little bit, and that could cause problems with the timeline of the project. So you learn quickly how to deal with different types of personalities. Having stayed in a finance role with finance people and accounting people, yes, we have different personalities, but it tends to be similar, very similar. This project you had to learn to work with a lot of different personalities and different types of people, and work through those issues. We had no choice. We needed the project to succeed. So those morning meetings, normal, very good. But if something coming off the rails a little bit, we'll take it aside and we'll talk one on one. But it's pressure. It's definitely pressure, but the project went well. We can say it went well. So.
I like the experience that we had. There's one actually. There's one experience that I had in one of those workshops that we led. So for the audience, just to kind of explain a little bit, when you have an ERP implementation, you have to have a team of what we call key users or super users or power users, and those are like subject matter experts in each of the departments that will eventually, I mean, during the implementation, they're the experts in their field that will eventually tailor the solution so that it fits the department as well, but also be the liaison to introduce changes to the way that the department's currently working as well. So that when the new system comes in, that person is the resource person. Say, no, we don't do it this way now. We do it this way with this system. And when we form a team, like we have key users from what Alex alluded to, like you'll have it from sales, you'll have it from purchasing, procurement, inventory, you'll have it from the shipping and the warehousing. There's a lot of different personalities in there. And I remember, and this is why I love Alex, by the way. I'm going to tell you a story about Alex. Okay. So there was this one time where we were in British Columbia. We were in Surrey, the Surrey site. And I was tasked at leading a workshop for it wasn't pre-UAT. I think it was actually I can't remember what phase we were in. Um, but I was alone, like we had another implementation manager named Charles, and he was kind of the big leader of the project. I did more of the project management and change management in that one. But up until that time, I suffered from a bit of imposter syndrome myself, Alex. And I remember having to lead that workshop on my own and have those daily meetings. And I was like, oh my God, don't ask me a question I don't know. Don't ask me a question that I don't know. And I remember there were a few times where like there were some key users who, their personalities, they like, what about that? You guys did. You said you were going to do this, but
Yeah.
it didn't happen. Yeah, and it got me because I was like so paralyzed with fear. And I don't know if you saw it, Alex, and but like you jumped in and you saved my ass. You saved my ass, and I never forgot. It's like, oh, thank God, Alex is here. You know,
I
and
I believe strongly that you work with the honey, not with the stick. It's uh, having people jump on each other or get upset with each other wasn't conducive to moving the project forward. So, like seeing someone attacking another coworker for whatever small issue is happening wasn't going to solve anything. So I tend to do that. I still do that in my current employ. Like I'll still step in and try to be a mediator a little bit, um, just to calm things down, because sometimes it just gets ramped up for no reason. And I don't think that was going to be the case in your situation. I don't think it was going to ramp up, but I can see that the person was frustrated. And we can address it. Everything's solvable, right? We just need to take the time and think it through, which was important on this project. Really think through every process and what was happening. So I guess that was just natural for me to step in and just say, hey, we'll figure this out. Don't worry about it, or we'll get you the info you need. Just give us another day. It's uh, I don't know. To me, that was that was the only way to move this project forward, because starting to infighting or arguing or disagreeing over small things wasn't going to help at all. So yeah,
oh yeah, yeah, and I remember that specifically. There were things that it was very deep into the project, and I guess that person only saw more work to be done, and they had already put in a lot of time, and then I was about to ask them to do more, and and you can see the true mark of a leader, like and I'm not talking about like the person who's placed in charge. I'm talking about leadership on a team, and you demonstrated what true leadership is, on that in that moment for me. And that was the moment where I actually like I didn't know you as well, but I knew you then, you know.
appreciate that, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh
Again, you're
man.
making me blush again, but I don't, like I said, it's something that it just came natural. I felt like I needed to step up at that point of the project. Like you said, we were a little later in. Finance had a lot of eyeballs on it. I felt like I was, I guess, more of a leader on that project at that point. So I figured it was my time to step in and just make sure we keep the eye on the prize at the end. We wanted a successful launch, right? That's what we all wanted.
I wanted to ask you, because now we've kind of talked about leading into it, that decision of you to go in, and then we talked a little bit about the experience. Like in I guess computer games, when you get enough experience points, and then you reach another level, and you get new powers, or new abilities. What's a new ability that you got walking out of that place?
So it was definitely dealing with different personalities. That was a huge, call it an upgrade. So as you want to use the video game terms, we'll call it an upgrade to me. Yeah, it was learning how to deal with personalities, learning how to work under pressure. We had a lot of long days into the evenings sometimes, which I had done earlier in my career, but I hadn't done for a little while up until that point again. Really putting in the time, but also coming out of that project and learning what I have learned, thinking back to the beginning, how I had people that had said, don't do it. It may not be the best thing for you. Realizing that, you know what, I need to trust my gut, bet on myself sometimes. And, you know, I don't not consult with your friends and family and other people that you want to work with. But ultimately, it's your decision for your life. And if your gut, and you strongly believe that you should do it, even if everyone else is telling you not to, sometimes it's worth rolling those dice and jumping into something that that everyone else thinks might not be right for you. You're the only person that can make that decision. And that really, when I thought back on it, it was the right decision for me. And that was, so coming out of it, I get to realize that, you know what, I can trust myself as well. I know what might not always know what's best for me, but in that moment, I did. Absolutely, I did.
Awesome. And I think you mentioned it too. Like there was a lot of travel. There were so that means you were away from your family quite a bit. How did you manage that?
Uh, it wasn't always easy. I'm not going to pretend it was all sunshine and rainbows. You know, I had this is a while ago, so I had one kid in daycare and one starting elementary school at that time. So it was difficult. My wife works full time. We're lucky that we do have a support system here at home with family around that we're able to help out sometimes. My wife is very supportive. She understood that this is what my job entailed, and you know, she didn't give me too much grief about the travel. Um, we had to organize. We really had to organize our life. Like if I was leaving next week, we tried to make things as efficient as possible. Prepping meals, making sure that the house was clean so she didn't have to worry about it. These are just small things that I had to do at home to try to make things as smooth as possible. And it wasn't always smooth. Um, you know, it was always a relief to get back home. I think a lot of the travel was a bit shorter. I think usually 3-4 nights. There was a couple times. I think the longest one I did was 10 nights. That was really long. That one was that one was really difficult. Having to go over a weekend. Uh, we worked right through the weekend and everything. Those were tough. You need if you're going to do this type of project and you know ahead of time that you're going to be traveling, you need to have a supportive partner that's going to be there to understand why you're doing this uh, and what the job entails. Because if I had to travel and be worried about what's going on at home, it would have made it very, very difficult to focus and give the energy I needed to give to the project. So you need to I said earlier, you know, I spoke with my wife before taking on this project. She said, you know, do what you feel is best for you, knowing very well that I would be traveling. So she understood and she supported me. You need to have that support. Absolutely.
I often think the key ingredient to my success was my wife. She really supported me during that time as well, and I think my daughter was she was 8 or 9 at the time
Hmm.
when I was doing it, and it was hard for me personally because I really I love to spend time with my family. So, but we also kind of knew that this was an opportunity that was going to be good for us, you know, or good for me personally, and on a career level, but also good for us because you know, not going to lie, like that helps financially too when you take on a big project from
Yeah.
for a company, you know. So. Uh,
I thank FaceTime because I spend a lot of time on FaceTime with my family. So
Uh, can I ask you one question about the experience? What did you not like most?
um, the ooh, that's a good question, Mark. Look, the travel wasn't always the greatest. I'm going to go back to that. It was tough, but that was definitely an aspect that got a little tiresome towards the end. We were on the road a lot. Definitely part of it. Um, Sometimes you got to work with personalities that you don't drive with. It's inevitable, and you're not always going to get along with everyone. It did happen on that project. You just kind of have to tough through it. You have no choice but to deal with it. So having to deal with that was challenging. Still being able to put out a uh, good results or give the all the work that you need to good work, but having to work with people that you just don't get along with could be difficult sometimes. So those were probably two parts that I didn't enjoy. Honestly, and you're not always going to work with someone you like, but it doesn't mean I had to enjoy that time working with someone I didn't want to work with. So it's okay.
I feel you. I feel you. You know, my I guess the one part that I didn't like as much, but I know was absolutely necessary from a project leadership standpoint is the politics at the top with the steering committee. You know, like it's a lot of high pressure in that kind of I guess environment at that time. You know, I mean, you spoke to it, right? Like it's sometimes it's make or break for a company. So there's a lot at stake.
It can be make or break, and it's a big investment. These systems that they're putting in place. I wasn't involved, but I'm looking at it now, and we're looking at millions of dollars for these type of investments. So I can see why there's pressure at the top. Thankfully, I didn't have to deal too much with the steering committee. I let you and Charles take care of that. But no, I absolutely can understand why there's pressure. Yeah, not fun to deal with. Absolutely.
But now that you're the executive sponsor and you'll be on the steering committee, I think you'll go easy on the whoever's managing the project a little bit, maybe.
I will. No, I have a better understanding of what they have to deal with and what their experience is going to be, which I think will help me better communicate expectations and timelines and why. I felt like maybe we weren't always explaining the why, and explaining the why is important so people understand what's going on and what's at stake. Yes.
Good, good. Well, good luck to the project manager who works for you. It's tough enough already, you know. Like you don't need a really tough sponsor. So, well, I mean, you do need someone who will hold you to account, but you don't need someone who will be a jerk.
Agreed. I try not to be, so it's good.
That's good. Okay, so you know what? We've gone through the ERP implementation, which is an experience that you and I both kind of shared at that point in time. Soon after that implementation, um, I guess you parted from the company that we were both at, and then what happened after that?
After leaving there, I went to another organization. Was with them for about a year and a half. They had a merger that's worked out really well for them, and after the merger concluded and everything was working, I decided to move on again to where I'm at now. I've completely changed industries, which again was a bit scary on its own. I had spent, I guess, about 15, 16 years in industrial manufacturing, mining, kind of always in that domain, really in a manufacturing setting. To now, I'm in apparel, distribution, and wholesale. So definitely a change having come into this industry. My first few weeks when I'm being introduced to everyone, everyone's in shock. Oh, what do you mean you're not in? You didn't come from apparel. Everyone seems to be in that. They stay within that bubble. But it's been a good change. The apparel industry is very fast paced. Everything's changing all the time. The organization that I'm with, constantly looking for uh, new acquisitions, new brands. So there's always something on the go right now. So my role now, I'm CFO at this organization, so I'm responsible for all of finance, banking relationships, and everything else that goes along with that. So a little bit more responsibility than I had before, but it's been fun so far. I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
And I know that's not all you do, right? I mean, you're a family person, right? But you also coach. Can you
I
tell me
do.
a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the coaching has kind of been uh, honestly since high school. As soon as I graduated high school, I went back to my high school for a couple of years and coached the rugby team there. Then I took a few years off, and then I coached another rugby team here out in the West Island here, St. Anne de Bellevue. I coached the U18 men's team there for 3 or 4 seasons. Then my kids came along, so I took a little hiatus to spend a little bit more time at home. Then when my son, my firstborn, was old enough, he decided to start playing hockey. So I got back involved in the coaching there, and I've been coaching ever since. So that's been another probably eight more years since I've been coaching. They're both hockey and rugby, and honestly, it's something I love to do. It's when they're really young, it's all about developing those basic skills and making sure it's fun. As my son has gotten older, this year he's 14 now, so he's playing on the under 14 rugby team this summer. And one great experience I had was my assistant coach this summer, who helped me out with these young men. He was one of the kids I coached on the U18 team when he was 17 years old. So when he raised his hand to come and coach with me, I was thrilled to see that he wanted to give back as well. And I asked him that first day. I said, "What made you want to coach?" He's like, "Well, he's like, my playing career is probably done." He's like, "And I wanted to give back. I had all these coaches." He's like, he's like, from you at U18 all the way through the men's and seniors team, and all these guys have given their time. He's like, I wanted to give back as well, and that I was happy to see that. And working with Chris was great this summer. He brought some some youth, I guess. He's a good 20 years younger than I am, so. And no, coaching really, it's fulfilling, especially when you see these kids do things that they couldn't do a month ago, because they're listening and they're putting in the effort. Earlier I really spoke about, for me as a coach, effort is number one. If I see you giving everything you can, I know that you want to be here. If you're just going through the motions and not, I know, after a couple of weeks, I know what a lot of these kids can do. So if I try to walk up, hey, what's going on? It could be very well. It's a long day. A lot of these practices are at the end of the day. They could be tired, and that's it. No problem. But next week I want to see you at 100%. So do what you need to do to be ready for practice next week, or be ready for the games this weekend. I love that part of my life, I guess, the coaching side. It's not always easy. I always think of a time, those Friday night practices with 9 and 10-year-olds on the ice. The kids are exhausted. I'm exhausted. The other assistant coaches are all tired. It's the end of the work week, and we get that 6 p.m. practice time on the ice. That's what we're allocated. And it's hard enough just getting everybody to come out. And a lot of families will say, you know what, we're going to give our son or daughter a break. But then when the kids that do make it out are really tired, so those practices are difficult. And you see the parents sitting in the crowd, and you're on the ice doing everything you can. They're sitting in the crowd having a nice beer at the end of the week, and you're skating on the ice with the kids. Sometimes it could be tough, seeing those kids lift the trophy, or not even, just having fun, scoring that goal, or making that pass, that assist, with the smiles on their faces. It really is amazing. Yeah, it's a big part of my life right now, the coaching.
Yeah, I can tell. Okay, I mean, the way you speak about it, it's very passionate, and you can tell. I can tell also. No, having worked with you, I know as well that I'm sure a lot of them are very grateful that you're their coach. Um, just but you spoke a little bit about how like it's at the end of the week you have that 6 o'clock practice on the Friday. Sometimes people make it out, and then it's a bit of a sometimes it can be a bit of a drag. And but then what is a typical week for you during a time when you have to coach?
I guess it depends which sport. For rugby, it's a summer sport here. So uh, practices are Monday nights. Games are usually held on Sundays. So that's Sunday, Monday, back to back can be challenging sometimes. So let's start the week on a Sunday morning. We wake up and I've gotten all the gear ready for the team, everything I need to bring, water bottles, coolers, tents, everything gets all packed up. Rugby for the U14 and under level tends to be held in a jamboree style. So all of the clubs go to one central place to play multiple games in a day. So it can be a long day. This summer was particularly hot, so that makes the days a little bit more challenging. So making sure that the kids stay hydrated, stay in the shade. So it's a big day. It's a long day. Having the practices on the Monday can be challenging if we're playing on Sunday. We get injuries. It's a contact sport. So I might have a few kids that are missing out on practice, or they'll show up but they can't practice. So those Monday evening practices, I try to keep it focused. I'll evaluate if we're going to do contact or not, depending on how everyone's feeling. And then with rugby, there's only one practice a week. So there's not really an option to skip it. I can't move it. That's the time allocated that we have for that week on the field. So I still got to get the kids focused, even though they played yesterday, and try to get them to execute. The U14 level that I coached last summer can be a challenging level. It's a critical age for sport in general. A lot of these kids, they're going into high school. They're just coming into high school, and it's a time when a lot of kids tend to either gravitate to other sports or drop sports altogether. So keeping them engaged, keeping them excited and happy to want to keep coming to practice is important. So yeah, I want to do the fitness and make sure that they're all ready to go, but I got to keep it fun as well. For me, having the number of kids that come back the next season, to me, I use it as a direct indication of how the coaching was the season before. And I always push them, especially for rugby. It's still not as mainstream as some of the other sports, soccer and football and hockey out there. I always try to convince the kids to maybe bring a friend out, come and try it out, and it worked. I had a couple of kids bring out some friends this year, and the kids stuck around. So it's important to really gauge your practice to the age age and skill level that you're focusing on. The rest of the week after Monday, typical family life, work, just like many other people out there. But I'm always thinking of Sunday, always thinking of game day at the end of the week. Well, what can I do? How can I help the kids? How can I, prep them? We use an app on our phone called Team Snap that I can communicate with parents and players. I'll send out some tips, some advice, and that remind people, bring sunscreen, bring water. It's always going on in the back of my mind. So it takes some time, but it's fun.
Mhm. And what's one of the toughest experiences you've had coaching over the years?
Yeah, honestly, I guess this is more on the hockey side. I was a coach. I was also a coordinator for one of the age levels. What a coordinator does is early in the season, they'll organize tryouts, make sure everyone's in their proper categories. We hire some evaluators, and we have some volunteer evaluators. That's a very high pressure time of the season for hockey teams. Every kid wants to make the highest level they can. And as the coordinator, you're the one working with the evaluators, moving kids around from one group to another, and those movements always raise issues. Unfortunately, nobody likes to be cut. Nobody wants to be moved to a lower group. So those times were always the most challenging. often get stopped at the arena. What happened here? How come this person got moved and this person didn't? And having to deal with that, knowing it's coming, because it is. And look, my son played too, right? I know what it feels like to have your kid cut from one level to another. I dealt with it myself. It's not fun at all, and I get where the parents are coming from. But it's the worst part of doing that job. It really is, having to talk with them, and it was really important to have the proper evaluations in place to be able to explain where their son or daughter needs to improve to focus for next season, so that they can be on that 18, or they can be on that, have a better shot at making that double letter team. So that, dealing with those personalities and some very frustrated parents, it was never easy. But I absolutely get where they're coming from. Everyone cares so much about their kids, that it's hard to keep it in sometimes.
Well, I guess having been also, like you mentioned, you've been in that situation yourself because you had a kid, and you were also at one point coming up the ranks too as a player. You know what that's like. So I guess it certainly helps, like putting yourselves in their shoes and being able to. If I was the one receiving that message, how would I want to receive it, or how would it be the least painful? I guess to hear.
I really tried just to not take it personally, as the person, I guess, in charge. They're venting. They have nobody else to talk to, so I just sit. I sat there and listened. Sometimes being spoken to or yelled at is not fun. But having, like you said, having been on the other side and knowing what their frustration, I give them a chance to vent, and I really try not to let things get to me, let it roll off my back. I got some nasty emails sometimes. I sometimes I wouldn't even respond. It just wouldn't be worth it. I can tell that the other side just wanted to get it off their chest and let it out. Not an issue. If you want to yell at me, go ahead. I know you're not attacking me. You're just attacking the situation, because it wasn't me who made that decision. It wasn't one person's decision to move a kid up or down. It was really across multiple evaluations. So I knew that it was the right decision most of the time, and people just wanted to, vent, and you have to have a thick skin a little bit, and that's okay.
I wanted to ask you, I guess, maybe rounding out all of the experiences that you've had, is there any overarching advice that you want to provide based on the experiences you've shared?
Yeah, I guess, that first, the hiking up the mountain, and then taking that decision to go on to that project. The overarching theme for me was, it was just really believe in yourself, stick through it, and that first one, the mountain, really breaking it down into smaller pieces is really really important for me, and it's persevering. Really, it's perseverance. Going up that mountain, going through that project, making the decision, and even and even in the coaching, you gotta. It's not always gonna go well, but you gotta persevere through it, and you're realizing what you're doing it for. You're doing it to help these kids. You're doing it to finish that project, and you're doing it to prove to yourself that you can get to the top of that mountain that happened to be climbing. So perseverance is critical, and believe, trust your gut, and believe in yourself. I realize that I'm capable of more than I thought I am, and I think everybody is capable of more than they really think they can.
Well, you certainly made me feel that during that experience in the ERP implementation. I think that's a superpower that you have, Alex. Like, you have this ability to help people believe in themselves, even when their biggest critic is themselves. It's not as common a superpower as you think. So we need people like you in our lives, and even for me, like you've kind of like during our time together, and even after, like I've asked you advice, I've asked you to like, what do you think, and you've always made time for me, even though you're coach, this, that, Batman, Superman, and everyone, so I really appreciate it. I thank you so much, Alex.
Absolutely, Mark. Look, I'm happy to help anybody that I've around me, that if I can, I'll be more than happy to help somebody else. That's what it is.
Okay, one more thing. If the someone watches this episode and is compelled to reach out to you, how can they reach you?
They can always reach me at my personal email address. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. Salvaggio@hotmail.com. I know I'm dating myself with that email address, but that's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Okay, perfect. I'll be sure to put that in the description in YouTube and in Spotify, so people can reach out to you. Well, Alex, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your wonderful story, and thank you for choosing this podcast to share it.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Well, take care, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you on the next. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you very much for making it this far into the podcast. I really appreciate it. And you know what? We're not new anymore. We've got a couple of seasons under our belt. But I do want to say that we still need your help in trying to grow the audience. So if you can, please comment, please like, please subscribe to whichever platform you are watching this video in. So thank you. Have a good one.